Hello everybody, welcome to our second flipped lesson class. This time we're going to concentrate on present perfect. That is actually our second topic for the exam that would be in the middle of the month of September. Okay, so present perfect, some of you may know, has a very particular form. So we're going to have to remember most of the verbs that we have in English. Okay. As usual, make sure you watch this video lesson as many times as you want and answer the questions at the end for next class. Okay. Make sure you write them down on a separate piece of paper so I can collect them right at the beginning of the class on Monday. Let's start. How to form the present perfect. Present perfect typically we'll start with affirmations. Okay, so the positive forms in present perfect would always need an auxiliary, and I want you to think about the auxiliary here as the auxiliary have or has. Okay, and of course we will always need a past participle. Okay, when we talk about the auxiliary have or has, we have to classify them in two groups. You will always use the auxiliary have with the subjects I, you, we, and they. And then you will complete the sentence with a past participle. The second group is the third person, he, she, and it, which these forms will always take the auxiliary has. Just remember they're different. And of course, a verb that is called the past participle. Okay, I want you to understand that a past participle is what we know as the verbs in the third column. You know, every time you see the verbs, irregular verbs in English, you will see that there are three different columns, right? The first one for present simple, the second for past, the third called past participle. This is the one you need this time for present perfect. The only ones will not be possible. Okay. Now, I want you to understand also that present perfect uses a lot of contractions. For example, I've written 3 books. We've already seen that movie. Barbara's forgotten her cell phone. He's just woken up. In this case, the contraction for I've, we've, she's or Barbara's, and his are contractions that are using the auxiliary in a shorter form. That's why we have the apostrophe VE for have or the apostrophe S for has. Be careful because sometimes people can get confused and think about the apostrophe S as the verb is. But this is not the verb is. This is the verb has. Auxiliary has. Okay? Now, let's talk about present perfect negative. Present perfect negative will necessarily take the negative in the auxiliary form. That means you'll have to use auxiliary as haven't or hasn't. A sentence in the first group would be like this: I haven't seen. Or a sentence in the second group: he hasn't seen. Now the next group, questions. Present perfect questions. Okay, as usual, questions in English will always start with auxiliaries. So that means that you have to use the auxiliary have or has right at the beginning of the question. For example, have you finished? Has she finished? And then we got a couple of examples. Have you finished the project yet? Has George ever been to New York? Typically, I want you to answer the questions in present perfect in the following way. If these questions, like the ones we have above, remember these are yes/no questions, the only possible answer you will expect is a yes or no. If somebody asks you, have you been to London? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. The same auxiliary you use at the beginning of the question is the auxiliary that you're going to use at the end in the short answer. What about the second? Has Alex met Miriam yet? Yes, he has. No, he hasn't. Same thing. The same auxiliary you use at the beginning will be the one you use at the end for the answer. Example number 3. Have the results of the election been announced? Yes, they have. No, they haven't. As usual, auxiliary at the beginning is the same auxiliary we're going to take for the answer as well. Okay? Now, you have heard me say past participle many times. But what is a past participle? I want you to think about a past participle as a form of the verb that describes a completed action or state. We typically have these verbs classified as regular or irregular. I'm pretty sure you remember this concept from past simple. In past simple, we also had regular and irregular verbs. The same thing happens with present perfect. You will also have perfect, regular, and irregular verbs. Remember that regular verbs will always have the ending in ed, while irregular verbs just change dramatically. For example, I worked all day yesterday. That was past simple. But coincidentally, we also have the same form in present perfect. I've worked here since August. In this particular example, you can see the same verb in past simple and in present perfect. Same pronunciation, same spelling. The only difference is that in the second line, you will have the auxiliary have to make the difference. The context of the sentence is also different. The first one emphasizes the action is finished, while the second emphasizes the action is still going on. It's not finished. Irregular verbs. He sold his car last week. Past simple. He's sold 200 books so far. Present perfect. Coincidentally, the same verb is used in both cases, but we know the apostrophe s makes a difference because that's actually the auxiliary has. Now, in this chart, as you can see, we're going to have displaying the most common irregular verbs that I want you to memorize for present perfect. There are two big groups. The first group is those types of past participles which end in N, like been, broken, chosen, done, driven, eaten, fallen, flown, forgotten, given, gone, known, seen, shown, spoken, stolen, taken, worn, written. In the same way, we have a second group of irregular past participles which change in the vowel. I want you to notice how the vowel changes from the infinitive to simple past and then to past participle. For example, become, begone, come. You can go back to this chart as many times as you want. Now, here we have the typical exercise that I want you to do at the end of each video lesson. Remember that these questions are the ones I want you to answer on a piece of paper. For this time, you just need to tell me if the sentence, if these sentences are right or wrong, if they are correct or incorrect. Okay? So you will number your paper from number 1 to number 15, and from each question I want you to read it carefully and tell me it's wrong, right or wrong, it's A or B. Okay? Don't forget to do this for Monday. There is a little extra section that I want to explain here that has to do with the uses of time expressions like already, yet, recently, lately, and just. Remember that every tense in English has some keywords. So these are the keywords for present perfect. Okay? They are just referring to non-specific time. Okay? Compared to other expressions in past simple. In the case of already, these can be used in positive statements and questions. Look at the examples for me, please. In the case of yet can be used in negative statements and questions. And in the case of recently, lately, and just, can be used in positive, negative, and questions too. Okay? Make sure you check the examples before you complete this second quiz or this second practice that you also have to complete on a piece of paper. Make sure you get numbers, questions 1 through 7. Questions 1 through 7. Read the questions carefully and make sure you choose one answer, in this case one connector, that is the best in each case. Is the best option A, B, or C? Okay? As soon as you finish with this exercise, that will be the second part for this one, you can actually write it on a piece of paper and give it back to me on Monday. Okay? This is all for now. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next class.